Hi, welcome to the coaching game. I'm Laurie Lawson
And I'm Terry Yoffe with Coaches Creating Change. How exciting to be here.
Again, I know, we keep doing
very
this.
Exciting.
We
and
keep doing this.
If you see, there's Laurie, there's me, and then there's the Empire State Building joining us tonight.
So I think it's a great combo, and here's hoping that we get a lot done.
I know.
Me and the Empire State Building.
That's right.
So, what are we doing tonight, Terry? Because what have we done and what are we doing?
That's true. So, for the core competencies, we started out with the overall theme of setting the foundation, which was establishing the coaching agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had the next grouping called co-creating the relationship, and that was establishing trust and intimacy with the client. And then our last taping and show was coaching presence, which is one of my favorites, as well as establishing trust and intimacy.
I think we decided we like coaching
yeah,
presence. We decided that's kind of a cool one to do.
And today we're starting our next grouping called Communicating Effectively, which I think is very difficult for a lot of people. And the first one is active listening.
Which, oddly enough, if you were talking communication, you would think, talking, I got to be talking. And it's like, no.
No. I work with clients on their communication, and people think, well, it's you open your mouth and you start to talk, and that's communicating, and whatever comes out, comes out.
Right.
Except communicating, and even with active listening, it's all about influencing and persuading. And that is really what communication is all about. Maybe not in your personal life unless you want somebody to do something for you. However,
it never hurts to find out how to do that. Yeah.
However, so shall I read?
Sure, go ahead.
With active listening. So active listening, focusing completely on what the client is saying and is not saying. Understanding the meaning of what is said in the context of the client's desires and supporting the client in their own self-expression.
So let's kind of unpack all that.
That's very true. Go.
Oh, okay. That was pretty sneaky. Okay.
Direct.
Yes, direct communication. Yes. So really, when we all know how that communication is, one part of it is actually talking to people, but active listening is also a part of communication, and that simply means that you are making the person you're talking to a part of the conversation. You are hearing what they're saying, as Terry said, and what they're not saying. And examples of what they're not saying is like, yeah, I could do that. And you can hear they can't do that, or something stopping them, or a long pause, or a drop in energy, or an exciting energy. All of that is part of your listening and how you're going to find out what the other person's really saying. Because a lot of times, and I do it, if I think you want me to say something, I'll go, yeah, sure. I could believe it and I could not, but I'll go, yeah, okay. Because we all want to be compliant. We want to, pick our fights. We're not going to start a fight with that. But it's just kind of like not only talking and not only listening, but listening, what's it called, listening between the lines.
Right.
Whatever the person's saying, and then how are they saying it? When are they saying it?
Exactly.
So,
It's, listening to what they're saying and what's coming out, and then what they're not saying is also the energy that's around the whole picture or of them.
Yes.
So sometimes you can feel something, and also I think people don't always know. And it's up to a coach to try and understand with them what might be going on under the surface. And even though we talk about, I just want to say, client, coach, this is real life. This is anybody where you could be talking to somebody, but you're not listening. You know, if you've got something going on in your head of where do I have to go to the grocery store and what do I have to buy?
Or how am I going to respond to that?
Right,
you know,
exactly.
And you're already thinking of your response before you've heard what the person's actually saying. Yeah,
so
I do that.
But you're not listening.
Yeah.
You're not listening. And Stephen Covey, I love my quotes,
yes,
said,
she does.
most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply.
Exactly, yeah. And that's kind of what we're talking about. It's like when you're trying to formulate, well, blah, 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 you know, she's saying that, and I'm going to say this. You're not hearing what the other person's saying.
Right, exactly.
And that's kind of important. One thing that, and we're going to we use ICF, the PCC markers and all the things that they have under this particular thing of active listening. But it's like Terry says, it's really great for day-to-day communication, not with a client and a coach, just with another human being.
Exactly.
And one of the things is, and I'm guilty of doing this, if somebody says something and I have no idea what they're talking about, I'll just let them go ahead and I go, I'll catch on eventually. If you hear, if your client says, and you can always ask, or if your let's just say your communication person, whatever that is, says, I'm dragging my feet. It's like, well, what does that mean, you're dragging your feet? You know, if you can catch on to some of their language and ask them about it, it's like, explain that a little more to me, because I know what I think when I'm saying I'm dragging my feet. What do you mean?
Right,
you know,
exactly.
And we make a lot of assumptions, right?
That is so true, and especially in coaching. That's one thing that coaches shouldn't be doing, and I use shouldn't, is making an assumption when they really don't know. And or if a client has a lot to say, it's being reflective in kind of spewing back to them what in a summation, what they've heard, so everyone's on the same page. Especially in a coach-client relationship. And then asking, what are your thoughts on that? What is, where do you want to go today? What does this mean to you? So you start to zero in, and, it's very important for a coach and a client to be on the same page and it's also about the client being heard. And in today's world, most people are never heard.
Exactly.
And it's a privilege to really be heard by somebody.
You made so many good points. It's like, let me see if I can remember what they were now. It's like, oh no. But yes, also when Terry says spewing back what the client say, or recapping what the client say, don't forget to say, did I hear you right? Because we're all polite and we don't want to, choose our battles, and we don't want to go, that was wrong, but I'll let her go along. So just, check back. What I heard you say is that right? And check that.
Right.
And also, and I forgot what the other thing was, the cool thing that you said. It was like, okay, so
heard. Being heard.
Being heard, yeah. It's that's why people communicate, because they want to be heard. And when I first got into coaching, I said, you mean people are really going to pay me to be on the phone and talk to them? And I go, well, psychiatrists have been onto this for ages, So I said, yeah, they're going to do that. And you start to realize that what you're doing is creating a space where the person can be heard.
Right.
And that is not very common today. Also, what came to mind when you were talking was being heard correctly, because now we're all email and text, and Terry's on Instagram. I don't even know what that means, but she's on it a lot. And it's like, so the chances of being misunderstood or misread or misinterpreted are huge. And that's why I think we're saying communication has to be saved, the active listening. It's up to us to do that.
Communication is, as I said, one of the things I do work on with people, and it's astounding how many people, it starts at their core, and it's not that they can't communicate, but it's what keeps them from really speaking in a way that serves them. And a lot of people don't listen to what they say. They kind of, as I said, they just I'll use the word regurgitate, I'm sorry.
Spew, regurgitate.
Right. A word, and they don't hear. And again, to your point, Laurie, with everything being so shortened today, an email, a text, and how young people communicate, so much is lost. The art of personal interaction is dying.
Definitely. And misinterpretation, and we're all super sensitive, I think. I'll give you an example. I was going over to a friend's house on last Sunday, and she goes, well, sure, I'd love to have you come. What time? And I went, 11:30, 12. This is all email. And she writes back, well, you must be very busy. And I went, I have no idea what that means, but it was so I said, well, if there's another time you want to come, you want me to come, I'll come. And she said, oh, I thought you meant you were coming between 11:30 and 12.
And leaving.
Leaving at 12. Right. And I'm going, no, but I'm so glad she asked. And it was like, but she didn't ask. She just did a little slide. Oh, you must be really busy. I'm going, no. It's so easy to do that, because even when you're talking to someone, because you're not listening, you're 3 steps ahead. And that's what social media has taught us. Got to do it. Don't look at any videos over 3 minutes, and you got to answer fast and click on this button and like, whatever that means. It's like communication's getting lost.
It definitely is getting lost, and it's very sad. And so much, we're asked to multitask. Yes. You're on the phone, you're sending an email, you're doing something else, and no one can be that spread out and actually focus.
Well, that's the problem with multitasking. At first it was like, oh, look how cool, we can all multitask. Right. And then they realized, but everything was getting half done, right. or incomplete, or something. Yes, so I think, true. I don't know, it might be that you carve out some time if you God forbid you make a phone call instead of an email, but and you carve out some time and just really listen.
That interesting. I had that happen with a relative. We were going back and forth with texts, and he totally misunderstood me. And he texted back in a kind of a snide way.
And you're sitting there going, "What did I do?"
Right. And I said, "I don't get this. What is this about?" And he said, oh, my bad. I misunderstood what you were saying.
And the important thing is, it's okay to misunderstand, but to ask. It's like rather than assume that you've interpreted this correctly. If something sounds wrong to you, and it sounded wrong to you, and it sounded wrong to me, but I just said, well, I don't know what she's talking about. I'm busy. Right. Ask. It's like, what do you mean? Right. It's okay, because that means you're really interested. And that brings us to, because what we're trying to do is align the ICF Core Competencies with the marvelous points of view cards. And the one we came up with, it's getting harder and harder, is point of view. And one of the quotes under point of view is that an opportunity for true collaboration arises when you realize that you can be right while the other person may not necessarily be wrong. And so both of you were right, both of you interpreted it correctly, but different meanings.
Not in coaching, you wouldn't do. There's, the coach has no agenda. It's really the client. And, as coaches, we've learned and we've been trained to really zero in on the listening. And if a coach is sitting there figuring out what their menu is for dinner or what they've got to do, they're not doing a service aid to their client, and they are missing the essence of what the client is trying to say. So as a coach, we really have to self-manage our mind, the chatter that goes on, so you're with the client, so you can pick up on what's being said and what's not being said, and the nuances, as Laurie was saying, so important. So we don't have a right or wrong perception. It's up to the client, and if we have a thought, or not even a thought, an inkling, that this isn't quite matching and what's going on here, it's the responsibility of the coach to try and kind of tease out what's underneath what somebody might be saying.
That is such a great point, because to take it one step further, if you are in a coaching situation and your client is talking and all you have in mind is the goal. She said she wanted to have a plan of action to begin an exercise program. But you're hearing, but the client's telling you, she's telling you, oh, but I'm afraid to go out of the house because I gained 10 pounds. And the exercise program, you really have to hear what they're saying. And you have to put that agenda aside and go, you know what? And that's one of the markers also, that you explore the person's emotions. If you can hear that they're in pain or they're reluctant, or ask them about that, because it's great to keep that agenda in mind, because ultimately that's where you want your client to be happy. But if you're hearing other things pop up, you have to deal with them too, because that's all a part of the whole person. And that's what the active listening is asking you to do. Respond to the person as a whole, not as a goal, not as a ball of emotions, a little bit of both, just how do you see your world, and how are you perceiving it, and what other way can you view it,
And also, it's interesting when somebody comes with a goal, I've got to achieve this.
Yes.
And if somebody says, I got to lose weight, and, I've got to get an exercise program, that's not always what's really going on. That's what they're perceiving it to be. So when you keep in mind, okay, but what, here's point A and there's point C, but what's really going on, if somebody really wanted to be on an exercise program and they've got 20 reasons why they're not doing it, that's where you need to really zoom in, because it's not matching up. And figure out what's underneath, what's the obstacle, what is stopping them from this. And, each person could come with that same goal, but each one would be different.
Definitely. As to the reason. It's funny, because in my head, I don't say it to them, but if my client says, here's my problem, Laurie, and I'm going, okay, I know you think that's your problem. You've given me a symptom. Let's go for the source. Let's find out where it's really coming from.
Right.
And that requires active listening. What are they really saying? They're saying, I need an exercise program, but really they're saying this and this and this is blocking me. And probably not only in the exercise program. It's probably a much larger problem.
Exactly. But, they come with something and the whole world opens up, and then they'll say, wow, I got so much more than the exercise program.
It's always good to say, well, what'd you learn? What'd you learn from this session? Or what's your takeaway? And how can you use it over here?
Exactly.
So, what do you do with silence? I have such trouble with silence.
Yes.
And that's a form of active listening.
Right. Most people, I would say a good majority of people, can't stand silence.
They want to fill the space.
They want to fill the space.
Yeah.
And I know I could be guilty of that. And I think most people, and I'll include coaches, want to jump in. And if there's silence, and I was just listening to someone, Marion, did a course, and she explained that with the client, she let the silence be, and the client came to her own aha moment. So it's allowing, and really that's self-management.
Very hard, very hard, but self-management, you're right.
Definitely it serves both parties to just, because you want to check in and say, what's going on? What are you thinking? Instead of you're not going to let it be there for 10 minutes. But,
you have to put a timer on it, but still.
But it's very important. It's part of the act of listening, even though there's no talking.
Right.
That's where it's the energy.
And you're right. That's on the coach, and that's hard. I have a mantra, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it's like the solution is in the struggle. Let them struggle, because we want to get in and she's uncomfortable. Let me help her, and maybe she didn't understand. Let her struggle. Let her or him struggle, and it's so hard. But you're right. It's active listening, and if listening, not speaking, listening. So
that's exactly right. And sometimes I'll ask a question and a client will be there and he'll say, I don't understand what you're saying. And I'll say, well, why don't you tell me what you think I said?
Oh, I like that. Because I would be going, well, let me ask you another way. Good for you.
Sometimes I'll do that.
Yeah, I like that.
Sometimes the mind can't interpret or doesn't want to interpret what's being said.
Yeah, or it's gone against the story that you love stories.
Right.
It's gone against the story they're telling themselves. It's like, well, wait, I don't have an answer for that because it's not in my storyline.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And what you do is, obviously, part of our responsibility is to help them look at their stories and hold that mirror up enough times that they get to see the stories they tell themselves.
Yeah.
Which doesn't serve them, and that's part of the obstacle.
And listening, the act of listening, is you're hearing the story, and therefore you can hold that up and mirror it back, and say, how true is this, or how does this really serve you? Yeah. Right. So, good point. Good point. Yeah. So there's so much.
I think sometimes we sit here and we talk about each of these core competencies,
and we learn stuff. It's like, whoa. Yeah.
And maybe the audience out says, oh, well, that's not difficult, or that's, that seems easy.
Try it.
But it's not easy. If you think about a coach, really is the client and the coach have signed a partnership. You're responsible for not doing it for the client, but really helping the client see what's getting in the way of their getting to where they need to go.
Maybe offering a new perspective, or letting them come up with a new perspective, or just allowing that safe space where they can kind of bounce around until they get to what it is that's causing the problem.
Right.
And that's really the goal of a coach, not to
fix it.
Yeah, not exactly. I was trying to think of a good way to say that, but not to solve the problem, but yeah, I think we all got into the profession because we want to help people. We want to fix it. We want them to be happy. But it's like, that's not really technically our job. Our job is just to create that space where they can learn. Right. And if they don't learn what you think they should know at this point, whatever, that's why it's good to ask them, what'd you learn? Because it could be, you could say, oh, I'm up here. And they could be right here. And that could be fine. That's a step forward or backward, whatever they're doing. But yeah, it's I don't know, maybe the ego just gets in the way sometimes of our communication.
Whose ego?
The person talking. Yeah. Oh, no, not the person talking, I guess.
Could be a coach, too.
It could be. Well, I was trying to think. The coach is talking, I think maybe sometimes we want to go, no, but I know the right answer. Well, that's your right answer.
Right.
It might not be your right answer, but it's mine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that what we have to learn is, when we pick up a phone or see somebody in person, there can't be any ego, and we have to really come to the coaching as an empty vessel. Yeah. Which is,
and I love that, and let the client fill you up. You tell you listen, and let them, and then you sort it out, and then play it back to them. Oh, I like that, the empty vessel.
Empty vessel, and that takes in, everything we've talked about, establishing the coaching agreement, so coach-client know what is happening. Yeah. Then co-creating the relationship. Trust and intimacy comes from having them be heard. Yes. And knowing that, oh my God, I'm going to be heard by this person. And, the presence, that's where presence comes in. Right. Being present, and when you're present and empty, then you can listen with your whole being.
Oh, yeah, nice visual. Absolutely, yeah. No, you're so right, because it's, if you're filled up with preconceived notions or goals, I really want to help this person, then it's not about this person. No. It's about what you want.
That's your agenda.
Yes, that's your agenda. Yeah. This person may just want somebody to talk to and work it out themselves, but. So I really like that idea of fill me up, I'm coming empty, fill me up with what you got, and then we'll sort it out together,
And I think also, to go along with everything, is, as coaches, with each session, generally speaking, we want to achieve something. Like
Yeah,
at the end of
yeah.
it, we want them to walk away knowing, and it might never get there.
Exactly.
And it might be that the needle moves not at all. Or
Right.
it moves a little bit, or it moves a lot. And being okay with, they didn't, your perspective, the coaches, that this is what we wanted, this is where I want to go today with them. That's
Yeah.
already inserting our own agenda.
Exactly.
And then we're disappointed, or we hang up and we didn't meet our expectations, and we beat ourselves up.
Right.
Instead of wherever it goes, and to be okay with that, which I find difficult.
I find,
Yeah.
well, and it's funny because I do mentor coaching,
Right.
and I can't tell you the many times I've heard the mentees say, I don't know, she said it was a good session, but I don't think we got anything done. I go, who cares what you think? If she thought it was a good session,
Right.
good,
Right.
And so it's but yes, we live, don't make no mistake, we live for those aha moments because it makes us feel good.
Right.
But that's our agenda, that's a
Right.
bonus that you may or may not get. So yeah, I'm gonna really to chew on that empty vessel thing. I like that. Yeah, just
I'm not saying that I'm always there with that,
No, but it's a
that's
goal.
the purpose.
It's a
for
goal.
a coach to just be,
Yeah,
to just
yeah.
be. And what if we could actually take that into our personal lives and
Yeah.
people we speak with and people we interact with? If we could just be there for them, they will get it.
Yes, I think
They
so.
know when you are actually paying attention and being there for them. It's like when we go to networking events, you'll talk to 20 people, and most of them are like, you're talking to them, and they're looking around and
is
trying
here?
to see
Yeah,
who
yeah.
they can go to. And it's like, I'm walking away now because they're not even interested in what you have to say.
No, they're on to the next person.
They're
It's like,
on to
I
the
got
next-
her card, and I
Right.
gave her mine, and who else can I give the
Right,
card
exactly.
to? Which is,
It's the same concept
just
that
not-
you don't want
yeah.
that to be your modus operandi for how
Right,
you go through
right.
life.
Yeah, and so that's a good way to approach networking. I don't even know what somebody would do if you just sat there and really listened
Well,
to
it
them. They
just
probably
was a
it'd probably freak
metaphor
them
for-
out. Yeah,
It was, I
Probably
think,
be like,
just a
"Oh, I don't know."
metaphor.
So would
for,
you like to close us out with one of your super duper quotes?
Oh, okay. This is by Robert Bowden Powell, which is, if you make listening and observation your occupation, you will gain much more than you can by talking.
Oh my gosh, that is so
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah.
And one more, which is, listening is often the only thing needed to help someone.
Okay. Now that's hard for me to grasp, but I'm gonna chew on that and the empty vessel and see what I could come up with. Yeah. All right, we're at the end of our
we
time.
are.
We're
We
going to
are.
be back next month. But we did a lot of active listening, even though we were talking the whole
Yes,
time.
and, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.